webinar presentations, minimizes distractions. And we'll get started with our presentation in about 2 minutes, just to allow for a bit more time for more participants to join. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get started very shortly. Thank you. Hello again, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our virtual information session today. My name is Jeffrey Hengel. I work in the Graduate School of Engineering Admissions office at Northeastern University, and I work closely with all of the programs that are offered via the Graduate School of Engineering. But today we're going to highlight one in particular, our Telecommunication Systems Management program. I have a few introductory comments to make and some kind of broad statements about Northeastern University. And I'll be joining you again towards the end of our talk to conclude our session, and also to facilitate some Q&A if you have any questions about our talk today. But we're really featuring today the program director, Dr. Peter O'Reilly, who's going to provide an in-depth overview of the program. By way of introduction, just a few notes. Please turn off your microphone and camera if you haven't done so already. That tends to minimize distractions in these webinar-type presentations. This will be sort of an audio-only. You'll see our PowerPoint, but you won't see our faces, but it's just kind of an audio-only presentation. And so throughout the session today, though, if you have questions, there's a couple ways you can ask questions via this WebEx platform. One is to use the Q&A function, and the other is to use a chat window. We actually want you to use the chat function, and that should appear somewhere on your screen. And when you type in a question, please type that to everyone so that all attendees will see your question. And we'll be sure and get to those. Most likely we'll reserve answers to questions towards the end of our session today. Joining us today, in addition to prospective students and applicants, we have admissions staff, co-op staff, and other program staff who are participating, who are in the background, waiting in the wings, so to speak, to answer any and all questions that you have. When you're a prospective student, you want to talk to faculty, you want to talk to admissions people, and you want to talk to all of the other people that would be supporting you as a student should you be accepted and should you enroll in our program. We're going to be providing a lot of information today. There will be a recording available following the presentation if you registered for this event. So I think usually those recordings are available within certainly 24 hours of the session. So don't worry too much about taking down really careful notes, because you'll have access to that recording later. A couple admissions notes. October 1 is the final spring 2018 deadline. If you're interested in spring entry, which is where students will start their program with classes starting in early January here in Boston. Technically, the deadline was September 15th, but we usually give applicants till around October 1st to complete their file with any remaining documents. So if you're joining us today and you haven't yet applied and you're really interested in our programs, you have a bit more time to apply for the spring. But the vast majority of our applicants will apply for fall 2018 term entry, where classes start in early September, and most applicants apply by January 15th. One other comment, if you applied to any of our programs for the spring, very likely you'll hear your official decision by mid-October timeframe. So in a few more weeks, you'll know your official status. I wish you the best of luck in this very competitive process. The last check mark on the screen is something we call our Alternative Program of Interest application offer. Admissions at Northeastern is highly competitive. Some of our applicants have interest in more than one of our programs. It's possible that some of you joining us today actually didn't apply to the Telecommunication Systems Management program. You may have other interests. So we encourage all of our applicants to explore our entire menu of programs, and if they have an interest in more than one program, we invite them to apply with a waiver of the application fee. So if you already applied to one program and your file is complete, then we'll invite you to submit a second or alternative program of interest application. So look for instructions on how to do that within the next few days. Actually, you'll receive those instructions via email if you already applied to our programs. By way of introduction, most of you are interested already in Northeastern, so you know a bit about us, but we like to tell applicants and prospective students that we're one of the best national universities in the U.S., been ranked within the top quarter of all ranked U.S. institutions for several years now. And in my time in the graduate school, about 7 years, the school has grown in its ranking every year for the last 7 years, and now we're around ranked 39th among best national universities, which means a lot about the quality of our programs and the quality of our faculty and the quality of our students. Secondly, on the list here, we're located in Boston, Massachusetts, really one of the best academic communities in the United States. It's a fantastic place to live and to work and to study. One of the things we'll be emphasizing later is the cooperative education program, where many of our students will do a 4 or 6 or 8 month co-op. It's a paid industry position, which is built into the degree plan. It's a competitive process, but many of our students benefit greatly from participating in the graduate co-op program. Last on this slide, we like to emphasize that our Career Services Office at Northeastern University that serves all Northeastern University students, not just engineers, has been ranked as one of the best in the country. So Northeastern is very serious about the career success of its students. With that said, I would like to introduce our featured speaker today, Dr. Peter O'Reilly, who's the director of the Telecommunication Systems Management program. Before I turn the microphone over to Dr. O'Reilly, a couple words of introduction. Professor O'Reilly is originally from Dublin, Ireland, studied electrical engineering, then later obtained his MS in electrical engineering from Colorado State University, and also holds an MS in applied mathematics from Georgia Institute of Technology, where he also received his electrical engineering PhD. We have a lot of electrical engineers who are interested in this program. Dr. O'Reilly has been director of the TSM program at Northeastern since 2002, and actually is now leading up an effort to launch a specialization in our computer systems engineering program with a specialization in the Internet of Things. So if you have an interest in that program, Dr. O'Reilly is also a good point of contact for that. Before Northeastern, Professor O'Reilly was at GT Laboratories and Verizon Communications, where he held a number of technical and management positions. He also managed a number of large software development projects that span multiple locations. 2 of his projects won Warner Awards, GTE's highest technical award. Professor O'Reilly previously taught at several other universities, both inside and outside of the United States. With that said, let me turn the microphone over to Dr. Peter O'Reilly.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. And this is a virtual information session, obviously for prospective students especially in the telecom and networking area. And this program has been around for about 15 years since I came to Northeastern, and we've had about 660 graduates of the program, And of those, I would say about 65% are from India, about 25% from China, and after that's the U.S. and so on. But many of those graduates are still here in the U.S., especially those from India, and working in industry. So that's also a resource that our students can draw on in terms of getting co-ops and getting a full-time position when they graduate. Next slide, please. And this is a joint program, as this slide shows, between 3 colleges at Northeastern, the College of Engineering, which is where the program resides, but also the colleges of Computer Information Science and the School of Business. And students may take courses in all 3 colleges at the university. And next slide, please, Jeff. Now, over the past couple of years, we have been going through the process of changing the name of the program. The name Telecommunication Systems Management has been a name of the program since it started in 2002, but hopefully very soon the name will become Telecommunication Networks. And the reason for the name change is to more accurately reflect the content of the program, because when you look at the list of courses we have in the program, most of them have the word network in them. And it's not always apparent to a student or a potential student applying to the program that this is very much a program as much about networking as it is about telecommunications. And next slide, please. Now, Mr. Hengel, in his initial introduction, talked about why Northeastern. So the next question might be, why would you want to come and do an MS in telecom and networking at all? I mean, so the term, to some people, the term telecommunications tends to bring up the old-fashioned wireline, network where everything is very regulated, but it's also, of course, the cellular world, and also what most people don't really understand is that the network which connects, which is the basis of the internet and all these things, is essentially the telecommunication network. And that's the network that binds everything together, okay? It's a basic core infrastructure for all connectivity worldwide. So we're talking here about the internet, mobile wireless, obviously, cloud computing, the Internet of Things, and so on and so on. And networking and telecom are not, static areas. I mean, they're highly dynamic. Things are changing an awful lot. They're constantly evolving. New technologies and new businesses, new job opportunities, etc. And some of the more hot areas today are obviously, I'm sure most of you are aware of it, are 5G, virtualization, software-defined networking, the Internet of Things, and data centers. That's just some of the ones that come to immediately to mind. And the other thing, of course, to remember is that there are loads of great jobs in the telecom and networking industry. Most of our graduates are picked up pretty quickly after graduation and have no problem in getting really well-paid jobs. And not only well-paid jobs, but challenging jobs which will set them a stage for their future career. Next slide, please. So, given that you want to do telecom and you want to do a master's in telecom and networking, why Northeastern? I mean, there are other universities that do the same in the U.S. and elsewhere. But first of all, this program at Northeastern has a real focus on industry. This is not a research degree. The focus is to prepare our graduates to work in industry. It is also, based on data from the past few years, one of the top 2 telecom programs in the U.S. in terms of number of students. In the most recent academic year, we graduated 120 graduates who are now, many of them, looking for work or already have received and work inside the U.S. or in their home countries or elsewhere. And that 120 number is actually the highest so far, highest number of graduates in an academic year that this program has produced. So you can see from that the program is obviously in great demand, and there are plenty of jobs for our graduates. because this program is focused towards industry, and industry, as I mentioned, is constantly changing in terms of technologies and market opportunities and so on, our courses also need to constantly evolve. Not just the courses, but the actual, basic content of the program, which of course is part of the reason of the need for the name change. So recent courses that we have brought in the past few years on things like software-defined networking, network function virtualization, LTE and the evolved packet core, the IoT, cloud computing, and so on. Another big feature of our program here at Northeastern is the amount of flexibility our students have. And as we'll talk about, there are a number of core courses, but students also have the flexibility in the electives to take a wide range of courses. And in all three colleges, engineering, computer science, and the business group. And another major reason for obviously for coming here as well as anywhere else is the high rate of both co-ops and graduate placement. We place about 75%, or we have in the past a year, about 75% of our co-ops, of students have been placed in co-ops, and in fact for some groups like Indian students, it tends to be a lot higher than that. And also in terms of getting full-time jobs afterwards, our students are generally fairly quick in getting positions. And some of the salaries they get are really quite impressive. Next slide, please, Jeff. So as indicated in the previous slide, the goal of the program is to prepare our graduates for a career in the telecom and networking industry, either in the U.S. or internationally. And where do our graduates go? They get positions with service providers. It could be a company like Akamai, for example, which provides peer-to-peer service through content distribution networks. Network operators like Verizon and AT&T, equipment suppliers like Nokia Networks or Cisco or Juniper. Application developers, obviously companies like Facebook and so on, and a whole bunch of technology startups. And as indicated in an earlier slide, Boston is one of the really hot spots for startups in the U.S. these days. Next slide, please. Applicants are always asking, am I qualified for admission to the program? And I thought it would be worthwhile to sort of go through the process that we look at our applicant pool and the things that make some applicants be admitted and some perhaps not. Well, first of all, the first thing that's required is an undergraduate degree in engineering, computer science, physics, and math, which is probably fairly obvious. We look for fairly strong academics. And since this webinar is to a large extent aimed at applicants from India, we generally look for the minimum a first-class degree, and we really look for it's very desirable to have a first class with distinction. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily talking about the final year of your undergraduate program, but over that level, if you like, all over your full 4 years. Since for North American applicants, the requirement is a 3.00 GPA, which over the full academic undergraduate program, we look for very much the same kind of thing for international applicants from whatever country they're from. We clearly look for good GRE and TOEFL scores. On the GRE, a sort of bare minimum would be a 50% percentile, but the 65th percentile, which is around 720 or so, is much more desirable. On the TOEFL, the absolute minimum is 779, but we really look for people with a higher score, such as around 90 or higher. This program is obviously open to applicants whether or not they have prior work experience, but especially in the case of some applicants whose academics may not be as strong as they could have been. Maybe you had to spend a lot of time partying when you were an undergraduate and didn't really get the high grades you should have got. but you have shown that through your work experience that you have shown real aptitude for the telecom and networking area, and you've developed some real strong skills there. So we, especially for those applicants, we really have a good look at their prior work experience, especially in the telecom and networking domains. But the final point really is that before we make a decision or admit or not, we look at the complete application package. That will include things such as your CV, letters of recommendation, and a statement of purpose. So we look at all those things before a decision is made. Next slide, please. Now, this is a 32-semester-hour program, and as we'll see, this requires a bunch of courses, and our courses at Northeastern are 4 semester hours, and most of them are 4 semester hours. So that breaks down into 8 courses, 4 core required courses, and 4 electives. And of those electives, at least 1 should be a business elective, and 1 should be a technical elective. And for this program, because of the focus on industry, there is no thesis or project requirement. Now, the list of technical electives may come from the College of Engineering, the Telecom program itself, or other programs inside the College of Engineering. Some of them are listed there. They may come from the College of Computer Information Science, especially the Computer Science program, but also Information Assurance. And it may also come from programs in the College of Business. Next slide, please. And a question that students often ask, or applicants often ask, how long does this program take? Well, most students take 2 courses per semester. We're talking here really about international students, and because 2 courses equates to 8 credits, generally equates to 8 credits or semester hours, and that is the minimum required for international students. So that would essentially mean 4 academic semesters. So, and without a co-op, a student who would start in, say, September 2017 would finish in May of 2019. Now, if you go on a co-op, and a co-op is maybe during the fall or the spring semester, then it's quite possible that it'll take you a little bit longer to complete your degree. And so if you start in September 2017, for example, you may finish in December in 2019. But that's not a hard number, because sometimes students take courses while they're on co-op or during the summer, or they may take more than 2 courses in an academic semester, so they could possibly finish earlier. And it's even possible to complete the whole program in 1 year, and that has been accomplished. Like one of our graduates completed the whole program in 2 academic semesters. Next slide, please, Jeff. So let's first talk about the core courses. And as I mentioned, there are 4 of them, and there are the titles there. And as you can see, basically the word networking comes into 3 of the 4 courses, or titles, so that's, again, a reason for the name change. And also, 2 of these courses are fairly new. Tele 5350 and 536 are essentially being offered the first time in this current academic year, the 2017-18 academic year, because we have revised our core courses. And that gets back to the whole point that technology is constantly changing. We need to update our courses, so we're updating our core courses. And the other thing is we were also adding on, of course, new electives all the time. And when new technologies are, we need to cover those in our program. So the next bunch of slides, there's 4 of them, 1 for each of the core courses. And so I'm not intending here that you're going to have time to read all what's on these slides, but basically the points here are that the first course here, the Telecom 5330, the data networking course, is going to provide the basis of data networking protocols and architecture. So we list there a lot of the things that you're going to learn in this course, and you'll also learn the basics of the Python programming language as well. In the next course, which is listed here, which is the core business course, there's two basic topics it covers in this. It covers the basis of business management and also provides introduction to the major regulatory issues that are confronting the telecom industry. Again, you can read that afterwards if you like. Next slide, please. And the next one is one of our new core courses, which is, of course, a second course on networking, which really looks at the infrastructure of the network, of the telecom and network infrastructure, both wireline and wireless, and so delves down deeply into that. And in part of this course also you develop or you get introduction or review of the basic communication technologies are necessary for this network to be developed. And the last core course, 5360, is another course on the networking side, which is basically a follow-on from the 5330 course, the first one I listed. And that goes into a lot of more detail and also into some special areas such as data centers and so on. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the electives in this program. As I mentioned, there are 4 core courses that are required courses, and then students can elect to take another 4 core courses out of different disciplines. So there are 2 broad areas of electives. The first area is technical, and the second area is business. And I'll give you some of the slides and some of the communications and networking courses in the next slide, but they fall into the technical category. They can also be software courses from the College of Engineering or also from the College of Computer Science. And then the business side, there are courses students can take from the Engineering College and also from the College of Business. A part of this program is that students do get exposed to some business issues. So we have a core business course, and students are required to take at least 1 business elective. Most students take only 1 business elective, but we have a few who will take more than that, who are more interested in going to work on the business side of things as opposed to on the technical side. Now, there is a prescribed list of electives, which we set up, and that's available in the catalog for each academic year. But students can also request to take electives not on that list. So if you contact me and there's a course that a student wants to take, I will review the course and then let you know whether or not you can take that course. But that's quite common. A lot of our students take courses, for example, from computer science. So let's talk about some of the technical electives, since most applicants to this program are interested more in the technical side. So the first set are the communication and networking electives. And as you can see there, the first 3 are courses that are inside the telecommunication program itself. The first one is on LTE and the Evolved Packet Core. The second one is on IP telephony, VoIP. And the third one is on SDN and virtualization. Also courses in computer science and security and networking, wireless networking. We have a course on the Internet of Things, which is a new program, so fundamentals of the IoT course, which is an option. And then there are courses in electrical engineering. You can see them there. And there's also a course in the information assurance program on network security and security practices. And there are some others listed in the catalog, but they're sort of the primary ones. On the software side, next slide, and we list here some of the software courses. We have one in the Telecom program on Linux, which covers shell scripting and so on. There are courses in computer science, such as the Mobile Application Development course, in the Computer Systems Engineering program. There's a couple listed there, but there's others that students can also petition to take if they wish. And in the Information Systems programs, there are a few courses that students can take as well. So, but as I mentioned there in the bottom there are other courses, especially in computer science, can be taken as electives as long as you get prior approval from me as the program director. Next slide, please. The College of Engineering in the past couple of years has now beginning to offer a number of graduate certificates. Graduate certificates, each of them requires 16 credits, or if you like, 4 courses. And because if you're coming here as an international student, they must be completed in conjunction with the degree, by which we mean that you cannot stay on afterwards. After you finish your master's, you cannot stay on afterwards to complete a certificate. It must be finished the same time or before. So one of those certificates is a certificate in Broadband Wireless Systems, and this is a certificate available to telecom and networking students. And there's also other certificates in the software and data areas, and also on the business side. For this particular one, for the Broadband Wireless Systems, these are the 4 courses that are required for this certificate. And as you can see, 2 of them are core courses for the program anyway, and the other 2 are a telecom elective on LTE and EPC, which is the last one, and also on wireless communication systems in the electrical engineering department. And finally, I point out here that the Northeastern also offers a Gordon Leadership, Engineering Leadership Certificate. We don't have time in this particular information session to talk more about that, but you can follow up if you have any questions on that particular certificate. Next slide, please. It's also possible for applicants to come to Northeastern just to get a certificate. You don't necessarily have to come here to get a degree, and you will get an I-20 for a certificate, which is just 16 credits. So you can apply here for basically a certificate which can be obviously would be completed in 1 year, 2 courses each semester, and this might be attractive to applicants who basically may not have difficulty in putting together have the money available to do a full degree, but could do essentially almost half a degree. And it may also be attractive to applicants from industry who have a lot of prior work experience and who feel comfortable that after a certificate they're now ready for the marketplace. Because on graduating, you're allowed to go on optional practical training for up to a year. And then if you may decide to, if a company, you may stay working in industry, or you may come back and complete your MS degree. As long as you've taken a certificate, that's part that can be kind of a large part of it will count towards one of our degree programs. But for example, if you take the Broadband Wireless Systems Certificate, all of those count towards our degrees. In that case, you would come back and take 4 more courses to graduate with a master's degree. After you come back, okay, obviously after a semester, you are now eligible to go on co-op, which is in immigration terms is curricular practical training. And when you graduate, you can again go on OPT for a second time. So this particular approach may be of interest to some of our applicants, probably not most of them, but it may be of interest to some of our applicants. So it's something to be considered. Next slide, please. Next topic to talk about is co-op. Okay, and this is one of Northeastern's strengths. We are one of the first universities in the U.S. to have co-op, over 100 years ago, and so it's something that Northeastern has specialized for many, many years, and it sets the university really apart from most other universities because we have this history and we have a lot of skills in this area. Now, for graduate co-op, obviously the goal here is education in your subject area, in this case telecommunications and networking, and also in the practice. So we allow our students here to go only on 1 co-op, and that co-op may be 4, 6, or 8 months maximum. And there are certain restrictions in terms of when you can go on the co-op. It has to align with sort of academic semesters. we find that having a co-op of 6 or 8 months is attractive to a lot of the companies out there, because a lot of other universities only allow students to go on a 3 or 4 month co-op generally during the summer. But we have got this, we have a whole bunch of staff, for example, who are involved in co-op. We're constantly getting jobs, and so allowing students to go on these longer co-ops is really important to us, because obviously the longer you are there, the more productive you can be, and very often in short co-ops, by the time you are ready to do anything productive for that company, it's time for you to leave. So longer co-ops generally are a lot better for both the student and for the company. So as I mentioned, we have a team of co-op staff which work with the students in developing jobs and in placing students. To get students ready for co-op, all our students have to sign up for a 1-credit course, which you have to take if you want to go on a co-op or internship. And when you are ready to go on a co-op, there are a few requirements. You have to have a GPA greater than 3.00. You have to have completed 2 academic semesters, or essentially 16 semester hours. And you obviously have to pass the co-op course with a passing grade. So those are the minimum requirements to get it. Besides getting the actual job, of course, these are the minimum requirements internally that you have to meet. And when you cannot go straight from a co-op job into industry, you have to come back to campus afterwards for at least 1 semester. However, many of our students who go on a co-op, the co-op companies understand how the regulations are, and a lot of our students who go on a co-op then get a job offer from that company afterwards. Not all, but I would say somewhere between 50 to 60% get a job offer from that company. Next slide, please. For telecom students, how it works is the co-op team will develop a list of positions available for TSM students, which students then can bid on, but students can also find their own positions, and obviously there are a lot of advantages to that, because you don't have to compete with other students in the same class as you for 1 or 2 positions. And to find your own positions, obviously there are a lot of tools available for that. Obviously we have a lot of graduates of the program out there working in industry, and most of them are very helpful to current students in helping them get a co-op or even a full-time position when they graduate. In the past 3 years, academic years, about 75% of the telecom students have gone on a co-op, excluding students who are not eligible for co-op, such as students on Fulbrights and things like that. And that's a pretty good number. For difference from students, for example, from India, I think it's a lot higher than that. I think it's more like 85%. So the reasons that some students don't get a co-op, or there are a few reasons for that. And the first one I list here is that students basically are not interested enough. They don't carry it through. So it's a lot of work, and maybe a lot of searching for jobs, a lot of applications, follow through, and so on. And that's part of the reason why students don't get a co-op. Some students just basically stop doing that. Poor grades. If you've got poor grades, you won't be allowed to go on co-op. Lack of motivation, and the other last one is English language skills. If your English language skills are not really up to par, it may be difficult for you to really go through the whole interviewing process, which these days is all done remotely. Next slide shows some of the companies that students have got recent co-ops from. I show 15 of them here. I think it's 15, yeah. And students got, these are all companies that students got co-ops from in the past 12 to 18 months. Some maybe just 1 or 2 co-ops, others maybe provided, like Nokia Networks, provided maybe 10 to 12 co-ops in that time period. And you can see there are a mixture of different kinds of companies, small companies, large companies, network companies, network provider companies, equipment providers, and so on. And next slide, please. This is a slide on financial support while you're at Northeastern. One thing applicants should realize that we do not provide any assistantships, research, or teaching assistantships with tuition waiver to our students. Most of those positions at Northeastern, on the Graduate School of Engineering at Northeastern, are reserved for PhD students. So you should understand that. However, students may go on these paid industry co-ops, generally the order of maybe $25 to $30 an hour companies pay. And as it shows there, this is regarded as CPT for F1 students. You may also work on campus up to 20 hours a week. And you can also be employed as course assistants and for many of our courses. That can't be done the first semester, obviously, because you have to take a course first, do very well in the course, and then you can apply to be a TA on that course. And that also, besides providing some money to the students, can also provide a lot of, can be very much a learning experience as well, and can look pretty good on your resume. Okay, next slide, please. So, what's next? After going through this particular presentation, you want to learn more about the Telecom program and other graduate programs. There's a website there you can go to. All the deadlines, which Mr. Hengel talked about, will be there as well. And you may be interested in a follow-up webinar information session that we're having on co-op, just on co-op alone, across all our programs on October the 12th. Now, if you have any specific questions about the content of the program, you can email me directly at that email address. If you have more general admission questions, you should probably contact Mr. Hengel and his staff in graduate admissions, and they'll be very happy to answer your questions. Next slide, please. And at this point, I'll hand the session back to Mr. Hengel, and we will review any questions there might be. And it's been a pleasure, talking to you this morning, and I look forward to having some of you anyway here at Northeastern in the next academic year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Peter O'Reilly, for that very nice overview of the TSM program and all of the program options that come along with it. There's an incredible amount of flexibility with the elective course options. There are the program options of adding a graduate certificate that you can pursue while you pursue your MS and TSM degree. There's the option of pursuing co-op. And so that's one of the strengths of Northeastern's programs, is offering students this flexibility and somewhat customizing their program to fit their particular interests. At this stage in our webinar, we ask you, our participants, to ask us any questions that you might have. They can be in-depth technical questions for Dr. O'Reilly about the program itself, or they can be admissions-type questions like, how do I apply, when do I apply, when will I hear back regarding my decision, what's required. As I mentioned at the outset of our talk today, we have staff joining us from the Cooperative Education Program who might be able to answer a more in-depth question about the co-op program and the co-op process. We also have admissions staff that are monitoring this webinar for any admissions questions. Well, just since there's just a few of you who are joining us today, I'll let you think about whatever questions you might have. And meanwhile, we have a few concluding slides. So think about your questions, type them into the chat window to everyone. Meanwhile, I'll conclude with a few final slides and a few final thoughts, and then we'll conclude our session today. Pursuing your MS degree at Northeastern University is a huge investment. It's an investment of time and energy and money. And it's not an insignificant investment. So tuition at Northeastern University this academic year is $1,523 per credit hour. As Dr. O'Reilly mentioned, the TSM program and most of our MS programs are 32 credits long, and so you can do the math on what the tuition cost alone will be. Boston is an expensive city, so there's personal costs that come along with pursuing your degree here in Boston as well. So sometimes we then we have $500 in fees that all students will pay. That goes to the use of our gym and other support kinds of services that students use. Much of that is related to our international student office, as many of our applicants and students are international. They're from outside the U.S. originally. And it's a requirement in the state of Massachusetts that full-time students have health insurance, so most international students will benefit from Northeastern's health insurance program, which is about $2,100 per year. So those are just most of the academic costs. The personal costs can be altogether, sometimes we tell students that the full investment is around $70,000 or $80,000 US dollars. That includes tuition fees, health insurance for 2 years, also personal expenses, rent, food, and all of the things that you'll need to pay for as a student in Boston in the TSM program. It's a huge investment, but there's a very big return. So you get the career you want, you develop knowledge and skills, you benefit from linkages to the field through your professors, such as Dr. O'Reilly. For those of you lucky enough to get a cooperative education program, cooperative education position, you'll also benefit from that. There are some universities out there that are less expensive than Northeastern, but especially if students are successful in getting a cooperative education position, they can earn a very significant salary to defray those education costs. So, in fact, for a student who gets a very good co-op position, the total cost may be even less than going to a less expensive place. And, of course, we have alumni connections from all over the world. So when we think about the investment and the return, sometimes I make the analogy to other professionals, such as a physician or an attorney or a business professional. Just like them, engineers invest heavily in their own personal development, their academic development, their professional development, and they experience a very large return on investment. So you invest heavily and you get a heavy return at the end. Most students then at Northeastern University fund their degree entirely on their own through the use of personal and family funds. It's common for a lot of students these days to take educational loans. As we mentioned, cooperative education, while it's an educational program, students who are successful will also earn a significant salary, and so it's one way that students can defray education costs if they're successful in getting a position. International students can work part-time. I often get a question about how many students, get positions. I can just say anecdotally from talking to international students at Northeastern that many of them work part-time. So it seems to be a pretty common thing. Any student that applies or any prospective student who applies to our programs are automatically considered for partial tuition scholarships. They're awarded to the top maybe 3% of our admitted applicant pool, so they're very competitive to get. The vast majority of students will get no funding support from Northeastern University, but just wanted to let you know that all students are automatically considered. You frequently won't be notified if you don't get an offer of any kind of scholarship, but if you do get a scholarship offer, we'll certainly, obviously, notify you of that. Okay, so it's about 10 minutes before the hour. I would like to turn off my microphone for a moment and let you think about what your questions might be. Dr. O'Reilly, myself, and additional staff will be monitoring your questions, and if we see those pop up, we'll certainly answer those before we conclude our session today. So let me turn off my microphone and let you think about what your questions might be. Dr. O'Reilly, we actually had a question that was posted around the beginning of our session today, and it's a question from one of our attendees who has a question or a comment about having relevant work experience. So our attendee says that they've been working with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise as a storage technical consultant, and they're asking in any way if that particular role is relevant to the TSM course.
Well, any work experience is valuable. Working in HB in that role, in terms of the actual work itself, probably is not that really relevant. But obviously, when you're working for industry, you get exposure to the company culture. You know what it's like to work in a technical environment, all that kind of stuff. So in that sense, it is valuable. As I said, when we review applicants, their applicants' application, and we look at the complete package. So we would take that into account along with all of the other items that we mentioned, such as the academics, the test scores, etc.
Okay, thank you, Dr. O'Reilly. With that response, why don't we go ahead and conclude our session today? It's just a few minutes before the top of the hour. As I mentioned at the outset, you'll have access to a recording of this session if you want to review what was presented here today, including contact information for Dr. O'Reilly, who's very responsive to prospective student questions, and also if you have admissions-related questions, if you have applied, or if you have questions about the application process, you can certainly get in touch with us. We thank you greatly for attending our session today. Let me conclude our session at this time and wish you a great rest of your day. Goodbye.